Have you ever noticed something strange about the most consistent people in the world? They rarely talk about motivation. They don't wake up every morning feeling fired up. They don't wait for the perfect mood or the right moment. They show up every day and do what must be done. No debate. No inner bargaining. While some people are still waiting to feel ready, these individuals are already finished. While many scroll through motivational videos looking for a spark, they've already trained, studied, and executed. And when you ask them how they do it, the answer is never emotional. It's never about inspiration. It comes from something far older. Something deeper. In 10th century Japan during the Heian era, there was an idea that separated ordinary men from legendary ones. It had nothing to do with raw strength. Nothing to do with intelligence. It was called Yamato Damashii, the Japanese spirit. The inner force that moves the body forward even when the mind wants to quit. This idea shaped warriors who could not be broken. Leaders who altered the course of history. Centuries later, during World War II, this concept was twisted and misused for propaganda and extreme nationalism. But that distortion was never its true nature. The original meaning of Yamato Damashii had nothing to do with conquest or empire. It was built on one simple, ruthless principle. Duty comes before emotion. Today you'll learn what this ancient idea really meant, and how it can turn you from someone who understands a lot but does very little, into someone who takes action almost automatically. But first, I need to tell you a story. The story of a man who had endless knowledge and no courage to use it. Before we continue, there's something important you need to understand. There are two kinds of motivation. The first is cheap motivation, excitement. The temporary rush you get from a video, a quote, or a speech. The second is real motivation, the reason behind action. The force that moves you even when you don't feel like moving. In a previous video on this channel, I explained this idea in depth, so if you've seen that, you already know what I'm talking about. In this video, we're going to expose why excitement alone can never take you where you want to go, and why relying on it keeps people stuck. I'm making this clear now so there's no confusion as we continue. And before we move on, take a moment to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. What's the one action in your life you keep delaying? What goal do you already know how to achieve, but keep postponing while you gather more information? Leave your answer below. And don't just comment, help others too. Some people here might be struggling with something you've already overcome. Let's build a community that actually pushes each other forward. Thank you for your time. Now back to the story. Chapter 1, The Man Who Knew Everything and Did Nothing. Japan, year 950. Heian period. Tadayoshi was only 24 years old, yet he had read more books than most men twice his age. Born into a noble household, he had unlimited access to Chinese classics, Buddhist writings, and Confucian teachings. While other young nobles spent their days drinking, composing poetry, and chasing pleasure, Tadayoshi studied military strategy, battle formations, the philosophy of war. He dreamed of becoming a great warrior, perhaps even a general who would shape Japan's future. But there was one fatal flaw. He never acted. Each morning, Tadayoshi woke with ambition burning in his chest. Today is the day, he told himself. Today I begin real training. Today I pick up the sword and train until my hands can no longer hold it. But then, something always intervened. A new scroll. A forgotten text. A technique he hadn't fully analyzed. How can I train, he thought, if I don't completely understand the theory? So he read, and studied, and memorized. By the time he finally felt ready, the day was gone. Tomorrow, he promised himself. Tomorrow I'll begin. The servants started whispering. Other nobles laughed behind closed doors. Tadayoshi, they sneered. The warrior of books. He could defeat you with words, they said, but never with steel. The remark stung because it was true. Tadayoshi possessed enough technical understanding to instruct soldiers, yet his own body had never been tested. He had never pushed himself to exhaustion. Never felt the dull fire in his muscles after endless repetition. Never experienced the discomfort that transforms ideas into ability. One evening, his father, a rigid man who had once served as a military advisor, finally spoke what everyone else only whispered. You think like a commander, he said coldly, but you live like a clerk. Knowledge without action has no value. You exist on paper, not in reality. You are a shadow pretending to breathe. The words shattered him. That night, sleep never came. His father's voice echoed again and again. He knew the judgment was fair. Years of learning, endless preparation, and nothing had changed. He was still uncertain, still weak, still trapped inside thought instead of movement. But the next morning was different. For the first time, he did not reach for a book. He left. Chapter 2. The man in the forest. Tadayoshi wandered through the forest bordering his family's estate. The air was sharp with cold. Dawn had barely begun to break. He didn't know what he was searching for, perhaps clarity, perhaps a reason to return home and hide behind pages once more. Then he heard it. A steady rhythm. Air splitting. Wood striking wood. He followed the sound to a small clearing. There a lone man practiced. He appeared to be around 50. His hair, streaked with gray, was tied simply behind his head. His body bore the marks of old wounds. In his hands was a wooden sword, and he repeated the same motion again and again. The same cut, the same stance, the same breath, hundreds of times. There was no visible emotion, no strain, no satisfaction. Only movement, clean, precise, unending. Tadayoshi watched, transfixed. When the man finally stopped, Tadayoshi stepped forward. "Master," he said instinctively, using the title without knowing if it was deserved. "I watched your training. I've never seen such discipline. Please, teach me." The man scanned him slowly. Fine clothing, soft hands, the posture of someone untouched by labor. "No," he replied, turning away. "Wait," Tadayoshi blurted out. "I've studied the techniques. I know Sun Tzu. I understand the strategies of great generals. I learn fast." The man halted. He turned slowly, his gaze hard and unmoving. "You know techniques?" he said. "Good. Then use them." And he walked on. Something ignited in Tadayoshi's chest. Shame, anger, desperation twisting together. "Please," he said, his voice breaking. "I need to change. I need to become more than this." The man stopped again. This time he said nothing for a long while. Finally, without turning around, he spoke. "You'll quit." "I won't," Tadayoshi replied instantly. "Everyone does." "I am not everyone." The man turned fully now, studying his face. He saw despair, but despair was meaningless. Despair was just emotion, and emotion fades. Still, perhaps this young noble needed to learn that lesson himself. "Tomorrow," the man said, "before sunrise. Here. If you come, I'll consider it. If you don't, never return." Tadayoshi bowed deeply. "I'll be here." The man almost laughed. Promises, as if promises ever mattered. Chapter 3. The first day Tadayoshi did not sleep. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the man's expression. He heard the words again. "You'll quit." He arrived at the clearing long before dawn. The forest was silent and bitterly cold. He stood there shivering, waiting as the darkness slowly thinned. Then, without sound, the man appeared, as if he had always been there. "You came," the man said. "It wasn't praise, just a fact." "I said I would," Tadayoshi replied. "Words," the man muttered. "Today we see if you have anything beyond them." What followed was suffering. The man finally gave his name, Kaido, and began with nothing impressive. No techniques, no strategy, only a stance. Feet grounded, knees bent, spine straight, arms extended, a wooden sword held steady. "This," Kaido said, "is the base of everything." "How long?" Tadayoshi asked. Kaido didn't look at him. "Until I say stop." 2 minutes passed. Tadayoshi's legs began to tremble. 5 minutes in, cold sweat ran down his spine. At 10 minutes, every nerve in his body screamed at him to move, to straighten up, to escape, to end it. "Master, silence." Kaido cut him off without raising his voice. He sat on a nearby rock, watching with the same unreadable expression. "Your mind is begging you to stop," he said calmly. "It always does. And it lies." 15 minutes. Tadayoshi's vision blurred. Tears filled his eyes, not from emotion but from raw physical torment. "I can't stop," Kaido said suddenly. Tadayoshi collapsed forward, gasping as if he'd run for miles. His legs shook uncontrollably. He looked up, searching Kaido's face for something, understanding, approval, anything. What he saw was disappointment. 15 minutes, Kaido said. "And you're already breaking. Do you think battles end in 15 minutes? Do you think enemies wait until you're comfortable?" Tadayoshi lowered his head. The shame burned worse than the pain. "Go home," Kaido said, standing. "You don't have it." Something cracked inside Tadayoshi. No, something woke up. "No," he said, forcing himself upright on unsteady legs. "I'll do it again." Kaido studied him with fresh interest. "You think this anger will carry you?" he asked. "This fire you feel now, it will fade. Tomorrow you'll wake up and you won't want to return." "I'll come back," Tadayoshi said. "Why?" Kaido asked. It wasn't a challenge. It was a test. Tadayoshi opened his mouth, then closed it. Why would he return? Because he wanted to be strong? Because he was ashamed? Those were feelings. And Kaido was right. Feelings vanish. You don't know, Kaido said quietly. And because you don't know, you won't last. He turned to leave. Wait, Tadayoshi shouted. Then tell me why I should come back. Kaido stopped. He turned slowly. Because it's your duty. Duty? Tadayoshi repeated, confused. To whom? To yourself, Kaido replied. To the man you claimed you would become. He took a step closer. Motivation is an emotion. Duty is a command. Emotions shift with the wind. Duty stands even in the storm. Kaido paused. There's a word for this, he said. Yamato Damashii, the Japanese spirit. It's not about wanting to act. It's about acting because that's who you are. Chapter 4. The second day, the first lesson. Tadayoshi returned the next morning. Not because he wanted to. His body ached. His legs barely held him upright. Every muscle resisted each step. But Kaido's words echoed in his mind. Duty remains even in the storm. Kaido was already there. This time his expression was different, not approval but recognition. You came back, he said. I said I would. Yesterday, Kaido replied, you said it with emotion. Today you say it with exhaustion. Which one is more honest? Tadayoshi thought. Today, he admitted. Kaido nodded. Yesterday you were motivated. Today you're obedient to duty. One disappears. The other doesn't. He ordered Tadayoshi into the same stance. Before beginning, Kaido spoke. Yamato Damashii isn't something you feel. It's something you do, until action reshapes who you are. I'll teach you. As Tadayoshi held the posture, Kaido asked, what did you study? Battle strategy, Tadayoshi replied through clenched teeth. Tactics. Formations. And did that make you a warrior? No, why? Tadayoshi hesitated, fighting the pain. Because I never acted. Partially correct, Kaido said. Your knowledge matters. The classics teach wisdom and strategy. But there is an old truth. Knowledge without Yamato Damashii is powerless. Tadayoshi's legs began to shake again. Do you understand what that means? Kaido continued. You can know how to win every battle in existence. But if you lack the spirit to step onto the battlefield, that knowledge is useless. He leaned closer. Yamato Damashii is the force that turns understanding into movement. It's what carries you forward when every part of you demands surrender. Tadayoshi collapsed. 20 minutes, Kaido said. 5 minutes longer than yesterday. He nodded once. Progress, he said. Not because you're stronger, but because you stayed longer. Your body is weaker than it was yesterday, Kaido said calmly. Yet you've improved. Tadayoshi looked up, confused. You didn't progress because your muscles changed, Kaido continued. You progress because you learned something vital. Pain is not the enemy. Hesitation is. Centuries later, a behavioral researcher at the University of Tokyo, after more than 15 years studying samurai culture, would explain that Yamato Damashii during the Heian period had nothing to do with aggression or militarism. It was about contrast. The difference between borrowed knowledge and lived wisdom. The Japanese understood the value of Chinese philosophy and strategy. They studied it deeply. But they also knew that without decisiveness, without spirit, knowledge remained inert, useless. It was the difference between reading about swimming and stepping into deep water. Chapter 5. The lesson of the river. On the third day, Tadayoshi arrived just as the sky began to lighten. Kaido was already waiting, but this time they didn't remain in the clearing. Today, Kaido said, you'll learn the difference between acting when you feel like it, and acting because you must. Follow me. They walked until they reached a river. The current was fast. The water was pale and biting. Kaido pointed to a rock near the center. You will stand there, he said, and remain until I tell you to leave. Tadayoshi stared at the rushing water. For how long? Until you understand. He stepped in. The cold struck instantly, sharp, merciless. He scrambled onto the rock, nearly slipping before regaining balance. He assumed his stance as the water surged against his legs. 5 minutes passed. His body shook violently. 10 minutes. His feet went numb. 15 minutes. Panic crept in. Every instinct screamed the same command. Get out. No. He looked toward the shore. Master, he shouted. I can't endure this. Kaido's voice cut back across the river. Your ancestors endured worse. They stood in mud and blood for days. They marched wounded. They fought until their final breath, and you are defeated by cold water? But why? Tadayoshi cried. Why must I do this? Because it is your duty. Kaido roared, his voice echoing through the trees. You asked to be taught. You declared who you wanted to become. A declaration is not a wish, it is an obligation. Tadayoshi closed his eyes. Tears ran freely, blending with the river. He thought of quitting, of stepping back onto shore. How easy it would be. Then his father's words returned. The mind of a general, the heart of a scribe, the laughter of the nobles, the warrior of books, years of study, endless preparation. No change. He was done being that man. The cold didn't disappear. The pain didn't soften. But something inside him shifted. He stopped resisting. I am here because I chose this. I remain because I must. Time dissolved. Eventually, Kaido's voice cut through the sound of water. Get out. Tadayoshi stepped off the rock. His legs barely obeyed him. Kaido pulled him from the river and guided him to a fire already burning. 45 minutes, Kaido said. Tadayoshi stared in disbelief. It felt like an eternity. Do you understand what happened? Kaido asked. For the first part, you fought the cold. That drained you. Then you accepted it as your duty. And once you stopped resisting, it became easier, not because the pain faded, but because you stopped adding fear and panic to it. He tossed more wood onto the fire. This is Yamato Damashii, he said. Not the absence of feeling, but the refusal to let feeling command your actions. You felt the cold. You wanted to leave, but you stayed. Duty does not negotiate with discomfort. Chapter 6. The origin explained. That evening, Kaido allowed Tadayoshi to return early. Before parting, they sat beside the river, listening to the relentless flow. Do you know why I teach this? Kaido asked quietly. Tadayoshi shook his head. Because men like you are exactly why this idea was born. Kaido lifted his gaze toward the stars. Long ago, he said, our elite immersed themselves in Chinese classics, strategy, Buddhism, Confucian thought, philosophy. They were intelligent, refined, brilliant. He paused. And many of them were paralyzed. They understood everything and accomplished nothing. Knowledge without spirit. Theory without embodiment. It was then, Kaido explained, that their ancestors recognized a missing element. They needed a word to describe what separated those who merely knew from those who acted. Having Karagakoro, borrowed knowledge, wasn't enough, he said. You also needed Yamato Damashii, the native spirit, the force that moves you forward even when desire is gone. Kaido turned back to Tadayoshi. This was never about rejecting foreign wisdom. Knowledge is valuable, but knowledge is only a tool. Spirit, he continued, is the craftsman. You can own the finest sword ever forged. Without the will to lift it, it's nothing more than polished metal. Tadayoshi listened without speaking. Do you know what truth our ancestors uncovered? Kaido asked. That real wisdom, the kind that solves problems, makes decisions under pressure, and acts without hesitation, does not come from books. It comes from repetition, from presence, from fulfilling duty when every instinct urges retreat. That, he said, is Yamato Damashii. The difference between the scholar who debates war and the warrior who enters battle. Between the poet who writes about courage and the man who lives it. And the difference, he added quietly, between who you were 3 days ago and who you are now. Chapter 7. The Great Temptation. Week 2. Tadayoshi had changed. His endurance increased. His body adapted. The stances no longer broke him as quickly. Then came the real test. The full moon festival. Music filled the estate. Poetry. Sake. Laughter. All the elite would attend, and Tadayoshi was invited. That night, sleep escaped him, not from excitement but from conflict. He had trained 7 days straight. One night wouldn't matter. He deserved rest. He deserved enjoyment. On the morning of the 8th day, he did not appear in the clearing. Kaido waited. He watched the sun rise fully. Tadayoshi never came. Tadayoshi, meanwhile, slept heavily, exhausted from celebration. When he woke, the guilt struck instantly. He had broken his streak. After all those declarations, the next morning he went to the clearing expecting it to be empty. Kaido would surely be gone. But Kaido was there. His face showed no anger. Only disappointment, worse than anger. You missed yesterday, Kaido said. There was a festival. Enough, Kaido interrupted, not sharply but tiredly. You don't owe me an excuse. You owe yourself one, and you failed. Tadayoshi felt tears rise. I'm sorry, he said. Please let me continue. It was a mistake. It was a choice, Kaido corrected. You chose comfort over duty, pleasure over promise. And that proves something, he continued. You still believe Yamato Damashii is about discipline when it's convenient. Kaido turned away. Wait, Tadayoshi pleaded. Give me one more chance. I understand now. I truly do. Kaido stopped and turned. Then tell me, he said. What is Yamato Damashii? Tadayoshi inhaled deeply. It's acting even when you don't feel like it. Surface level, Kaido said. Go deeper. It's duty over emotion. A result, not the root. Tadayoshi closed his eyes. He thought of the river, the cold, the pain. And then it became clear. It's identity, he said slowly. It's not what I do, it's who I claim to be. When I break it, I'm not breaking a habit. I'm betraying myself. Kaido was silent for a long time. Then he nodded. Now, he said, you're beginning to understand. Yesterday you chose pleasure, Kaido continued. Today you will choose consequence. Every decision has a price. Yesterday's price is paid today. What Kaido did next shattered Tadayoshi. He ordered him into the stance. 2 hours. Unbroken. No mercy. As Tadayoshi collapsed, shaking and sobbing, Kaido spoke calmly. This pain, he said, was chosen yesterday. When you abandon your duty, you don't avoid consequences. You delay them, and they always return with interest. In that moment, something fundamental clicked inside Tadayoshi. He had never lacked knowledge. He had never lacked plans. He had been playing the wrong game. Chapter 8. Identity, not action. The next day, Kaido changed his approach. There was no physical training. Instead, he made Tadayoshi sit. Do you believe discipline means forcing yourself to do hard things? Kaido asked. Tadayoshi nodded slightly. It does not, Kaido replied. Discipline is not effort. It is identity. There is a massive difference, he continued, between saying I should train and saying I am someone who trains. One is preference. The other is definition. Kaido drew a line in the dirt. When you say, I want to be a warrior, you create distance between who you are and who you hope to become. That distance allows negotiation. I want to, but not today. I want to, but I'm tired. But when you say, I am a warrior, there is no gap. No bargaining. Warriors train, Kaido said. Not because they feel like it, because that's what warriors do. Something locked into place inside Tadayoshi's mind. So Yamato Damashii isn't about forcing action, he said. Kaido smiled, for the first time in weeks. Correct. It's about embodying an identity so fully that action becomes automatic. You stop asking, should I? Because the question no longer makes sense. He continued, the great warriors of history never debated whether to train. That question never existed. They trained because they were warriors. The flaw in your learning, Kaido added, was never knowledge itself. It was that you saw yourself as a scholar who wanted to become a warrior, instead of a warrior who studies. Do you see the difference? Tadayoshi did. Perfectly. In the months ahead, Kaido said, I will teach you how to reshape identity, not through thought, but through repetition so consistent that your body and mind surrender to it. Chapter 9. The transformation. The months that followed were unforgiving. But something crucial changed. Tadayoshi stopped negotiating with himself. Kaido gave him a single rule, decide once. Act 1,000 times. Tadayoshi chose who he was, not who he hoped to be, and then lived as that person for 90 days. Every morning before sunrise. No exceptions. No, just today. No, I'm tired. The question, am I training today? Disappeared. Of course he was. Warriors train. And he was a warrior. By the 6th week, something strange happened. He began waking before dawn without effort. His body prepared itself automatically. By week 8, he no longer thought about training. He simply arrived. Kaido watched quietly. Do you feel it? He asked. Your mind has accepted it. You're not pushing anymore. You're flowing. But the real proof came on day 63. Tadayoshi woke feverish. His body ached. His thoughts were dull. The old voice whispered, rest. Today doesn't count. He stood anyway. He stumbled into the clearing. Kaido saw him immediately. You're sick, Kaido said. I am. Then why did you come? Tadayoshi answered without hesitation. Because this is who I am. Kaido smiled, not faintly but fully. A smile of genuine pride. Now you understand, he said. Yamato Damashii is not about strength. It is about being unmovable, not in power but in identity. Go home, Kaido added softly. Rest today. You have nothing left to prove. You didn't come for me. You came because you could not do otherwise. You have changed. Tadayoshi returned home, but rest no longer carried guilt. Because it wasn't avoidance. It was alignment. It wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Warriors rest so they can fight better tomorrow. The weak rest because they're afraid to fight at all. The difference is intention. The difference is identity. The difference is purpose. Chapter 10, The Final Lesson. Day 90. 3 months of relentless training had passed. Tadayoshi was no longer the man who arrived at the clearing. His body had changed. Muscle replacing softness, hardened skin replacing delicacy. But the real transformation couldn't be seen. Kaido sat him down one last time. You have completed your Ango, he said. Your period of total immersion. Now I will tell you the truth you were never meant to learn from words. Yamato Damashii was never about training. Tadayoshi looked up. It was about death and rebirth, Kaido continued. The man who came here, who understood everything yet acted on nothing, he is gone. Every morning you chose duty over comfort, you ended him. And every time you acted despite resistance, someone new was born. Kaido gestured toward Tadayoshi's books. Your studies were never wrong. Knowledge matters. But knowledge without spirit is a body without breath. Impressive, perhaps, he said quietly, but lifeless. Yamato Damashii is what gives knowledge movement. It turns information into wisdom, thought into action, intention into reality. Kaido stood. There is one final thing you must face. He led Tadayoshi to an open field. Waiting there were 20 armed men, real soldiers. Ardent. Alert. They belong to a nearby clan, Kaido said. They need a leader. Someone who understands strategy and has proven the ability to execute. Someone with Yamato Damashii. Tadayoshi looked from the men to Kaido. You're recommending me? No, Kaido replied. I'm assigning you your duty. You spent 3 months becoming a warrior. Now you will forge others, not through lectures alone, though your books matter, but through example. Through identity. Through Yamato Damashii. Tadayoshi swallowed. I don't know if I'm ready. No one ever is, Kaido said. Warriors don't wait for readiness. They act, and become ready through action. You know this now. Chapter 11. The true meaning. Before presenting him to the soldiers, Kaido pulled Tadayoshi aside. There's something about Yamato Damashii most people misunderstand, he said. Our ancestors had a saying, knowledge is useless without Yamato Damashii. You've heard it, but now you're ready to understand why. For a long time, Kaido explained, our elite idolized Chinese civilization. And rightly so, its philosophy, strategy, and scholarship were extraordinary. But a problem emerged. They knew war but had never fought. They understood leadership, but avoided hard decisions. They spoke of courage, but had never tested it. They possessed borrowed wisdom, but lacked the spirit to use it. Kaido looked directly into Tadayoshi's eyes. You were exactly like that 3 months ago. You could quote Sun Tzu, explain formations, debate tactics, but you had never endured discomfort. Never forced your body to obey when your mind demanded retreat. Your knowledge was dormant, because it had no soul. Yamato Damashii does not reject learning, Kaido continued. It completes it. It turns I know into I act. It unites 2 sources of wisdom, intellectual understanding and lived experience. The will to persist, the courage to suffer, the discipline to transform. That is Yamato Damashii. Tadayoshi nodded slowly. Everything aligned. His studies were not wasted, they were unfinished. Action had completed them. Go now, Kaido said. Teach these men not only what you've learned. Teach them who you've become. Chapter 12. 5 years later. 5 years passed from that first morning in the clearing. Tadayoshi was 29. He had become what he once only imagined, not just a warrior but a general. A leader followed not through fear but trust. 300 soldiers served under him. He had won 3 decisive battles. But his greatest achievement was invisible. He never waited to feel ready. He never searched for motivation. He never negotiated with duty. Because warriors do not ask if they will act. They act, because that is who they are. Don't say, I'll try to wake up early. Say, I am someone who wakes up early. Identity comes first. Actions follow. Second, remove negotiation. Weakness is not pain. Weakness is debate. The moment you ask yourself, should I do this today? You've already started to lose. Warriors don't decide every morning who they are. They already know. You don't ask if you should train. You train because that's what you do. Third, suffer on purpose. Not recklessly, not emotionally, but deliberately. Cold mornings, heavy reps, long walks when your mind begs to stop. Not to punish yourself, but to prove something to yourself. That you are not ruled by feeling. This is how Yamato Damashii is forged. Not in motivation, not in excitement, but in repetition. Day after day. When no one is watching. When nothing feels dramatic. That is where identity is built. The man who waits to feel ready will wait forever. The man who acts becomes ready. This was never about Japan. Never about war. Never about history. It was about this single truth. You either negotiate with your weakness, or you execute your duty. There is no third option. Kill the version of yourself that knows but does nothing, and be reborn as someone who acts. That is Yamato Damashii. Don't say, I should read more. Say, I'm someone who reads every day. The difference sounds small, but it changes everything. Second, understand this, duty is non-negotiable. When you say, I am someone who does X, you're not creating a goal. You're creating an identity. An identity doesn't take days off. You don't clock out from being who you are. You are you, every single day. Third, accept this truth, transformation hurts. It hurts to break comfort. It hurts to abandon bad habits. It hurts to give up short-term pleasure. Pain is a bitter medicine. Unpleasant at first, but healing in the end. Fourth, knowledge without action is an illusion. You can study fitness and remain weak. Read business books and stay broke. Learn about relationships and remain alone. What? Because you have knowledge, but not Yamato Damashii. Knowledge shows the path. Yamato Damashii makes you walk it. Fifth, consistency beats intensity. Tadayoshi didn't become a warrior in one heroic day. He became one through 90 days of showing up. Even when tired. Even when sick. Even when he didn't feel like it. Transformation is never one dramatic moment. It is thousands of small duties fulfilled. So stop chasing extremes. Don't study 16 hours once. Study 3 hours, every day without stopping. Don't obsess over hours. Obsess over days. But there was one final lesson, the most misunderstood of all. On the last day, Kao said something that sounded like a contradiction. Now that you understand Yamato Damashii, I will teach you when to break it. Tadayoshi was confused. Break it? You said duty never negotiates. It doesn't, Kao replied. But there is a difference between wisdom and weakness. Yamato Damashii is not self-destruction. It is not blind suffering. It is not punishment. If you are truly sick, not lazy but truly sick, resting is not betrayal. It is strategy. Warriors rest to fight better tomorrow. Cowards rest to avoid today. Same action. Opposite intention. Ask yourself one question. Why am I stopping today? If the answer is, I don't feel like it, it's hard, I deserve a break, that is negotiation. Kill the thought. Execute. But if the answer is, my body needs recovery so I can serve better tomorrow, that is wisdom. Yamato Damashii without wisdom is fanaticism. Yamato Damashii with wisdom is mastery. Its goal was never to create robots. It was to create warriors who act with purpose. Because discipline is not a prison. It is freedom. The freedom to decide once, and live 1,000 times without inner debate. Tadayoshi's story ends here. But the truth he discovered does not. You don't need more motivation. Motivation burns out. You need identity. An identity so strong that action is not a choice. It is inevitable. All your books, courses, strategies, mean nothing without execution. Knowledge without Yamato Damashii is dead weight. And the version of you that knows but doesn't act, that plans but never executes, that promises but delays, that version must die. And every single day you are the one who decides. In his place something new is born. Someone unwavering. Someone who doesn't negotiate. And when people ask, how do you do it? The answer is simple. He doesn't. He is. This is Yamato Damashii. Not Japanese. Human. The difference between dreaming and living. Between wanting and being. Between dead knowledge and living wisdom. And when you finally understand this, not intellectually but deeply, you will never need motivation again. Because you won't be doing things. You'll be being someone. And that person cannot help but act.